What's up, hackers? Welcome to TTI Live. My name is Taggart, and today we are going to be doing some Velociraptor. But before we get to some incident response and threat hunting, got some stories from the week in cyber news for you, starting with ESXi ARGs. I don't know if Kevin Beaumont created an actual MS Paint logo for this one, but it is out there and it is gnarly. Here's what's going on. Attackers are going after CVE 2021 21974. Yes, that's right, 2021. A heap overflow in part of VMware's ESXi hypervisor platform, the OpenSLP service. I remember reporting on this a while ago when it came out, but this attack is underway, and multiple, I can't believe I'm going to say this sentence, hypervisors connected to the internet are getting compromised. That is a bad idea. You should not have your hypervisor directly connected to the internet. There should be something between the internet and the platform on which you generate all of your virtual machines. And by the way, VMware also should not be configured such that SSH is enabled on that thing. You should be able to manage your tools in different ways. There are ways to harden your hypervisors that it looks like many of these organizations have not done. The story on Bleeping Computer links to, of note, a link to their own forum where people are talking about this issue and kind of sharing their experiences and their notes. And I encourage you to check that out just because it's so interesting to see what people there, people who are having this issue but aren't necessarily security professionals but have been made victims of this attack are saying. They are definitely, it's ransomware, right? But just by exploiting this 0-day, nothing particularly exciting there. So if you, for whatever reason, have a hypervisor, a VMware ESXi hypervisor that is connected to the internet, get this patch installed. The patch is available, so please get this updated. Okay, slightly smaller in scale, but interesting nonetheless because of the number of large organizations that use it. A service called Go Anywhere MFT, which is a file transfer platform, has announced a 0-day that, interestingly, doesn't have a patch yet, but has a workaround. And so if you are responsible for one of these platforms, again, you're going to want to harden this up and make sure that the workaround is installed. Now, one of the mitigating factors for this is that the attack vector requires access to the admin console, which probably shouldn't be exposed to the internet. Usually that's going to be internal, although as we just saw, there are a lot of organizations that don't understand what you should expose to the internet and what you shouldn't. And so again, if you're responsible for these, definitely something to check out. Make sure that your Go Anywhere instance is mitigated, that this workaround is applied, because as far as I know, there still is no patch open or available. And it isn't the case that nobody has this open to the internet. A recent Showdown search showed over 1,000 results for the signature of this on the internet. So definitely something that is present. Okay, how about some good news, kind of? It's not really good news, but it's better-ish news. Okay, first, for the Federal Trade Commission here in the United States, a healthcare software company has been fined to the tune of $1.5 million in a civil penalty from the Federal Trade Commission for multiple violations of practices with personal health information. So the company is called GoodRx. The company is GoodRx Holdings, and the app was called GoodRx, and it is a health platform that offers prescription drug discounts, theoretically, telehealth visits, other health services. And so obviously this service is going to collect health information about its customers. However, the FTC complaint, which I will link you directly to because we always like primary sources, talks about how GoodRx not only shared information with Facebook, Google, and other destinations, personal health information, but also used that information to target users with advertisements. That's a huge no-no. You cannot do that. Also, because it was hooked into so many other things, that information was also provided to third parties that weren't controlled either. So already we're in serious HIPAA violation territory, but then GoodRx also misrepresented its HIPAA compliance. So basically, all of this is really gnarly, but until now, organizations that had done this had not been fined. So this is a first for the Federal Trade Commission that they are taking their new guidance, its health breach notification rule, which is new guidance that they've put together, that this kind of violation results in civil penalties that are pretty serious. $1.5 million. I don't know how big GoodRx is, but $1.5 million is not nothing. And so I hope to see more of this. I hope to see these, especially health startups and established organizations, right? In full disclosure, I work for one. Healthcare organizations or organizations that are offering healthcare adjacent services, even if they aren't necessarily required under HIPAA to protect patient information, they should, right? And they should have policies and systems in place to make sure that that information stays private, and they definitely shouldn't be using it to make money on the side by selling it to advertisers. All right, news out of the way, let's talk about dinosaurs, or Velociraptor. So what is Velociraptor? You've probably, if you've been around the defensive side of cybersecurity for a minute, you've probably heard about Velociraptor, but it's possible that you haven't played with it. I have only touched on it a little bit before this last week, and I knew that it was going to be kind of cool, and I knew that it had a lot of interesting capabilities, but I wasn't totally sure about what it was or really how to make it useful in my life. And then at last weekend's Cactus Con, Recon InfoSec folks Whitney Champion and Eric Capuano gave an amazing talk on Velociraptor and how they use it as their primary tool, because Recon InfoSec is I don't know, what is it? It's not really an MDR, but it's like, yeah, it is actually MDR, Managed Defense and Response. So they are the people you call when something goes wrong and you need a third party to help you out. So when they have clients like that, Velociraptor is their primary tool to get into a system that didn't necessarily have adequate defenses in the first place or adequate detection and response in the first place. And then they can use Velociraptor to collect what they need. So today, we're going to set up Velociraptor a couple different ways and see how we can use it in different use cases. Let's get to it. Okay, so up first, let's talk about where we are and what we can do with Velociraptor. So I'm here in our lab, of course, and if you want to get started with Velociraptor, this is where you go. Also, let me bring the music back. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so if you want to get started with Velociraptor, yeah, look at that cute little guy. I think Velociraptor is definitely in the running for most adorable logo for a cybersecurity tool. That's for sure. So what can you do with it? Now, you might be freaking out because I'm on Rapid7's page. Rapid7 makes, of course, Nexpose, Insight VM, and a number of other commercial tools that you can pay quite a lot of money for. I use Rapid7 tools in my day job, but Velociraptor is open source. It was open source before Rapid7 kind of absorbed it or took over the project, and it still is. So no worries. Velociraptor remains open source. You can just get it. They make Metasploit too. So kind of like what happened with Velociraptor, actually, but even earlier, Arbrins, they kind of took over, they absorbed the Metasploit framework from its original maintainers. Yes, but you're absolutely right. They do maintain and update the Metasploit framework and integrate it into their other tools. They'll also let you pay a lot of money for Metasploit Pro. Don't. Sorry, don't. Their other stuff is cool. Metasploit Pro ain't worth it. Okay, so once you click download it now, you will be taken. How much is MSF Pro? I don't have the dollar amount, Christy, but I can tell you that it just ain't worth it, because what it's supposed to do, like the magic sauce under the hood for Metasploit Pro is that, yeah, so the reason you would get it is it has this automation component where you can set it up to like go automatically attack targets, or if you have it connected to Nexpose, right, your vulnerability scanner, if you connect it there, you can have Metasploit payloads run against your targets in addition to the vuln scanning from Nexpose. And I've tried it. The value just isn't there for me, honestly. I mean, and by the way, I work on a pretty large scale, so unless you're larger than the organization I'm working at, so think on the order of 80,000, 90,000 hosts. If I find something really spicy, I have other tools that I can use to validate the finding. I don't need Metasploit Pro for it. So that's just my opinion. That's not the opinion of my employer, but I've never personally seen a value in MSF Pro. But let's talk about Velociraptor. So we're here and we're at the GitHub page for Velociraptor, which is where all of the binaries are downloaded. And this is kind of the crazy thing, the first kind of crazy thing about Velociraptor, which is it is technically just one binary that does it all. So depending on how you deploy it, you use the binary in different ways, but it's the same file. So you go down here, you find whatever version, whatever operating system you want. One gotcha, if you're going to do Linux, there was something I noticed. If you're going to do Linux, the current builds, there are two. There's 6.7.4 and 6.7.5. I strongly recommend that you get 6.7.5. I was struggling last night with 6.7.4, and I couldn't figure out why. And then when I went to do 6.7.5, everything worked the way it was supposed to. So just a heads up there, the versioning numbers are slightly different between the Mac OS, Windows, and Linux builds. So just be aware of that. But once you get this thing, so for example, I actually have the Windows executable downloaded on my local system, like on my actual system here. And let me show you what it does. So we're just going to fire this up, right? I'm just going to run Velociraptor 067 XE, and I'm going to run GUI. So this is the total standalone mode. This is the easiest way to run Velociraptor. And actually, just kidding, because I want to run it as admin, right? I'm running this in my admin profile. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this up, and we'll just quickly get familiar with how this looks, and then we'll talk about more deployment options. All right, so I'm going to press enter, and hopefully this goes. Yeah, there we go. And a browser window pops open for me. But I'm going to reopen it over here. Hey, look, it's Velociraptor. That's all it takes to launch Velociraptor for the first time. And so this is kind of a review for me. I'm deciding, what I can do with this. I'm learning along with you, but I have practiced with this a little bit just to see what's up. And so imagine that you had a system that had no defenses on it and something happened to it, right? And you needed to quickly collect information from it. Well, one of the fastest ways maybe to do that is to drop Velociraptor right here on the system and then start collecting information. How does collecting information work? By the way, I have this thing configured in dark mode because I've launched this before, but if you do this, it'll start in light mode, which is awful. But luckily, the latest versions of Velociraptor do have other themes. So dark, I'm actually kind of into the GitHub dimmed. It's not as aggressive as the dark mode. Or you can feel like you're in the 90s. The dream of the 90s is alive in Velociraptor here. Look at that little 8-bit Velociraptor. And of course, Strawberry Milkshake, which actually isn't that bad. But I'm going to go with GitHub dimmed for now. But need admin rights. So it will run. That's a good question, Christy. It will run without admin rights, but you really should run it with admin rights to collect data. Yes. And the idea here is that this is used in incident response, right? Or it's used for prior detection. You could technically use this as an EDR, although I wouldn't recommend it. Lasso says, I had a quick play after you posted the Cactus Con video. It's easy enough for even me to set up. Well, first of all, I think you're selling yourself short there, buddy. But yeah, it is not difficult to set up this way. There are some gotchas when you set it up in a larger environment, but we'll get there. So the idea is that this is incident response, which means you should not have privilege concerns, right? You should be able to install things as an admin or as system. And ideally, when we deploy this thing for real, it will run as system. Trying to fix the focus on my camera. Hey, Wusa. Okay, so let's do a thing. First of all, the first thing I usually do is search clients here, which this is a little bit funky because you might think, oh, I have to actually type in a thing, but if you just hit search, then clients show up. Isn't the other idea that if you're calling in MDR deploying this, you're already past the host position? Yeah, so like this is the thing about Velociraptor. You can introduce Ooh. You can introduce Velociraptor in a bunch of different phases of compromise. Prior to compromise, you can use it as a really effective threat hunting tool, and we're going to talk about that. After compromise, you can use it as a forensics tool. So depending on where you are in the attack phase, there are different ways that you can take advantage of Velociraptor. There's really not a good way to shorten the word Velociraptor, is there? If I shorten it to Velo or Velo, that's a bike, so it doesn't really work. Anyway, Raptor. Well, then I'm just gonna, if I do Raptorless, so I'm just gonna stop this and we're gonna play Raptor Call of the Shadows, the old 90s Apogee game, and we'll get nothing done. But look, we see that we have a client ID here, and it's giving me some information. What happens if I click on it? So now, did you notice that these icons got ungrayed out over on the left-hand side? Now that I have connected to one of my clients, I have a couple of really cool capabilities. So this is the basic information that I have. I have a shell, interestingly. I can just immediately run stuff. And it'll run and it'll get data back. I hope. Yep, it did. Now it's a little funky because you can see that we've kind of jumped ahead here, but the way that this works is that you're collecting artifacts. And so when I run the shell, it's not going to show me the result right here. It's going to show me in the collected artifacts. So if I go to collected, you'll see that Windows System PowerShell, this was some old stuff that I was doing yesterday. This Windows System PowerShell ran, and then I have all the information about the artifact collection. And then if there are any files, requests, and then the request here, let's take a moment and check this out, because this is what's under the hood of everything that Velociraptor does. It uses a language called VQL, the Velociraptor query language, because of course you needed another one in your life. You needed another query language that was totally different from anything else. Check this out though. So we have a precondition, which is in fact VQL. Select OS from info, where OS equals Windows. The good news is that you almost never have to specifically write VQL because there's so much prepackaged stuff in Velociraptor, but you can, and it's pretty powerful. So this is what happens. So the first one is let the precondition, then let the Windows System PowerShell. So we're creating this variable with the let command. And then what are we setting it equal? Select star from execve, which is a function in VQL. And then it takes argvs, right? PowerShell, so EP, unrestricted, encoded command, and base64. So by the way, if you are, notice this, if you are running this on a system and then you look at it later, don't freak out because it's going to be running base64 encoded PowerShell for you. And then, yeah, so it runs this. And so we'll get these rows back. Whatever rows of information this returns, we get back. So when we look at the results, you'll see these are columns. The standard out, the standard error, the return code, and the complete. These are the actual columns of data that I got back with a single row. Now you're getting how it's a query language and how it's table-based. That is the basic idea. Now, the reason why this is interesting is I have so many different ways of collecting data. So we've called this thing an artifact. Well, there are many different kinds of artifacts. Let's check them out by going over to the artifacts collection. You can search for artifacts here. So, for example, obviously, Cape files is one of the most common. This is a very common IR thing, right? So Eric Zimmerman's Cape files is a pretty well-known tool for extracting information in a forensics context. But it's the Cape itself is not an open source tool. But the targets, the things that Cape goes after, are maintained in an open source repository, and so those targets have been taken and produced in this format as a Velociraptor artifact. And so this pulls, depending on what you want, all kinds of data. Look at all this, right? So we have the basic collection option, which will pull registry information, system profiles. We have the sans triage, which will also do Chrome shortcuts, Dropbox if it's there, a lot of software specific stuff, right? Look how big that is. We can do 1Password, we can do AVG, right? Any antivirus info. Look how many options this thing has, even Brave browser, Chrome extensions. So Cape Targets is kind of a one-stop shop for anything that you might want to pull back from a forensic standpoint from a system. Totally nuts, right? Look at all this. Now you might be, if you're overwhelmed by this, which honestly I am a little bit, there's also one for Ubuntu. It'll even do Ubuntu stuff, which is kind of cool. This is WSL. So it will look at WSL information, which is valuable. Okay, but that's not all. Let's get out of Cape for a second. What else do we have? Do we have sysmon? We do. We have windows.events. So if we look at windows.events, we have quite a bit. We have Kerber roasting, misspelled, process creation, service creation, track processes, right? So if we want to look for process creation, this is the VQL that does it. And so it's select from Win32 process start trace. And so it's doing it with sim. We can even look for PowerShell encoded commands. Curb roasting. Okay, so I don't know if I want to go into that right now, but there was a place near where I grew up that specialized in roasting chicken. And I never really understood what it was. Okay, so there's a ton of different artifacts here, but there are also more. No. I don't know why it is so hard to get to the documentation. Hold on a second, because I have it here. Okay, so there's even more. There we go. The artifact exchange has even more artifacts. So, look, windows.triage.sysmon. This artifact allows collecting sysmon events for triage around a timestamp. Awesome. So what I can do here is I can I can just copy this. And if I want to, I can create a new artifact. And just, boom, paste it right in here. Save it. And now I have windows.triage.sysmon as one of my artifacts. How do I run it? Glad you asked. I have a couple of ways that I can run it. I can either run it against a specific target in my... If I go here... and go to interrogate. Hey, Karen. Or sorry, go to collected. And add a new collection, or go to my notebook and add extra stuff. But a new collection is the easiest way. Right? And I choose sysmon. Configure, once I've selected this, see how it's highlighted here? I configure my parameters. Target time, let's go from this morning. Yeah, sure. And then we'll fire that off. Now note that it starts in a paused state. Or no, it's running now, it's not stopped. Right? Yep. No data available. I know that I have sysmon running on my system. Interesting. Maybe I don't have sysmon. I know I do, though. All right, we'll play with this in the lab. So the question was, can data be collected and sent over the network as well, or do bands only locally be deployed? Yes, it can. So we're going to do that next. So this is the basic idea with Velociraptor. I just wanted to show you how you can get it spun up very quickly on a specific endpoint and how this single binary is kind of everything. But now that we've done that, let's actually talk about how to deploy a Velociraptor server. So imagine that you actually want to collect information from multiple different endpoints. Maybe you want to deploy this system-wide as not an automated response, but sort of an incident response tool. Now, let's back this up. In terms of tool choice, if you're just learning about this stuff, most endpoint detection and response tools, in fact, all of them that I can think of, have some way of executing code remotely onto a system if you enable it. So, for example, I know that CrowdStrike Falcon has basically a system shell that you can access, and Defender for Endpoint doesn't, but it does have automated things that you can configure it to do in order to respond to threats. Trellix HX has what they call the host remediation module, where again it's like a systems shell that you can activate on demand for systems that you need to interact with. So a lot of other options will have this capability already. And of course, all the EDRs, forget just remote code execution, will have the ability to collect forensic telemetry as you need it. So I don't want to say that Velociraptor is a replacement for EDR, and you shouldn't think of it that way. But Velociraptor can be useful to be more effective than some of these tools at collecting threat hunting or forensic information. For example, what if you have Sysmon running on your system? And by the way, Sysmon collects data that other kinds of event log tools don't, like named pipe creation and things like that. Let's say you have Sysmon running on your system and you need that information. Velociraptor may be able to help you out there in ways that the EDR can't. So it's complementary to that information, but not necessarily a replacement for it. Defender has a nice collector of forensic data. Yeah, so obviously we're kind of, the elephant in the room here is that Microsoft has a first party and first mover advantage when it comes to defending their own operating system. So a lot of their tools are very, very good. That being said, not everybody's going to be able to afford them. And again, Velociraptor is in many ways the slam-on patch, right? Where once you are encountering an environment that didn't have the tools that they should have in the first place, what do you do now? And Velociraptor answers that question. But let's say that you did have a large amount of systems that you needed to either triage or monitor beforehand, and you wanted to collect data from all of them. How do you make that happen? Let's talk about that. So I'm here in the lab, and I have 3 machines spun up here. I have an Ubuntu server that we're going to set up as our Velociraptor server, our master server, main server, sorry. And I have 2 hosts that I want to connect to our main server. Velo1 is a Windows host. It's just Windows desktop and nothing particularly special. I have installed Sysmon on it though, so that we have that data to collect. Velo2 is nothing but, actually here's Velo1 and Velo2. So Velo1 and Velo2 is an Ubuntu desktop because I wanted to see what it would do with that. And spoiler alert, I have in fact infected both of these with some sliver sessions. Although one of them's being really weird. I don't know why. But the Ubuntu one is rock solid. I have turned off Defender for the Windows one because our purpose here is not to test Defender. Our purpose here is to test Velociraptor. So I want to be able to do evil stuff, play with it, and then see what Velociraptor can find. Got it? We're not going to say, oh, I don't want to hear like, oh, well, that would never happen because Defender would catch you. Like, yeah, I know. That's not the point. I don't have to be a master at EDR evasion. The bad guys are. Okay, but I will say that for the purposes of this, I did use an XLL for the infection, and Defender didn't touch it. Just FYI. And it worked great. I think you can even install Sysmon with Velociraptor. You can, USL2. That is correct. However, I use Danceable because I can. Yeah, in case you missed the XLL stream, check this out. This is the code that makes the XLL work. It's all Rust. I wrote the XLL in Rust, and look how small it is. This is it. Just a little get current process. This is reflective injection. Open process, write process memory, close handle, inject. Boom. And it gets it remotely from whatever source I put in here. So, I don't know. I thought it was cool that I was able to write an XLL in Rust with very little Windows API. Yeah, two-staged. So the XLL contains this code to pull down shellcode and reflectively inject it. And one of the tricks is I'm using reflective injection with create remote thread, which weirdly works better than create thread in this particular case. Anyway, not what we're here to discuss. I can talk about Rust all day, but I won't. You're welcome. So, let's start by setting up the Velociraptor server. This is going to be a little funky. There are some gotchas with this, so I want to take it slow. If we go to the Velociraptor docs and go to deployment, it will tell you that there are a few options for you. What we're going to do for this one, because it's a contained environment, is the self-signed SSL. And basically, you have broadly speaking, two options if you want to set up a Velociraptor server. One of them is this self-signed SSL. It's going to be a little bit weird. And then the other one, which is many more steps, but will be, I think, a lot more usable in the long run, is to do a cloud deployment. They really, really want you to use a certificate from Let's Encrypt, and they have that as baked in, literally baked in, as part of the binary, that it will go and make the Let's Encrypt requests for you to get a certificate for the domain name that you choose. Of course, that would mean that you have to have a resolving domain name in order to make that work. So either on AWS or DigitalOcean or Azure, whatever you want to do. Then that is kind of their recommended approach for deploying a Velociraptor server. I don't feel like doing that. I have this lab, so I'm going to use it. Will other EDRs flag on it any sort from what I have tested, researched? Flag on what? The XLL? So, no. I haven't tested all of them. Oh, will other EDRs flag on it? On Velociraptor? That's a good question. I haven't really tested it against other EDRs. I would imagine, because, I mean, the thing is that Velociraptor, you could imagine using it for evil, right? Somebody could just drop Velociraptor and use it as a C2. It is a C2, right? But it's a C2 for good. But that's only because the people who use it are good guys. So I don't know if it would. My guess, we can check the hashes or something just to see if VirusTotal has something for it. That'd be funny. Let's do that. Yeah, hang on. We'll do it in PowerShell to make HGB happy. Get file hash, algorithm, SHA-256. Velociraptor. Thank you. Okay. And then I'll check VirusTotal here with my VT shortcut. Thank you, Vivaldi. Nah, they don't care. Now that's static detection, right? My guess is that if you were to install Velociraptor in a managed environment, right, that there would be some sort of alerting somewhere saying, hey, are you doing this on purpose? Why are you installing this tool that we know has these capabilities? Because, you know, I'll get alerts for things like TeamViewer getting installed, things like that, right? So I think it's possible. We're not ready for dead disk forensics. We are doing self-signed SSL. So here's how this is going to go. First thing we're going to do is I have an SSH connection to the server I'm going to set up as my Velociraptor server. This is just totally blank slate, Ubuntu 22.04, nothing special about it at all. So I am going to download the latest Linux binary. And remember I said that 674 was giving me some trouble, so I'm going to go get 675. Yes, there it is. It's really hard to see these. And I'm just going to copy this link address, and then over here on my server, I'm going to wget and fire that up. All right, and I'm going to move that to Velociraptor so I don't have to tab autocomplete all of that. Good. And chmod plus X. Now, once again, I could just fire this up in the GUI mode that we saw before. That would create a standalone that doesn't help me because I need to configure this to run as a server. Everything that I need to make that happen is in this binary. I just have to follow the right steps. So, coming back over to the documentation, there is a wizard inside. Sounds like there's a small wizard in there, but yeah, there is a small wizard that will ask you riddles. And if you answer them correctly, the wizard will grant you config files for a Velociraptor server. So we're going to run Velociraptor config generate -I. And this part doesn't have to be run as sudo because we're just creating files here. Generate -I. Welcome to the Velociraptor configuration generator. Why, thank you. What OS will the server be deployed on? You should know, but okay. And that's kind of the thing. It's so platform independent. Like it'll even make exes from Windows for you or vice versa. But Linux, the path to the data store, that's fine. Opt Velociraptor. By the way, Velociraptor works on flat files, which is great from a forensic point of view because then you can just interrogate those flat files. Or use Jupyter. But it does mean that the files get big fast, or that the storage gets big fast. So be aware of that you're going to want to have ample storage if you're doing this at scale. We're going to do self-signed SSL. What is the public DNS name of the master? Should be main, front end. Okay, this is the part that will get you if you're not careful. If we look in the instructions here, it says the clients will connect to the server using this DNS name, so it should be publicly, that's not how you spell that, accessible. If you are using self-signed SSL, you may specify an IP address here, but this is not recommended because it is less flexible. I don't care. I'm plenty flexible. I can do full splits, but they are going to get an IP address for me. So this is... What is this at? Yeah, 192.168.99.111. Enter the front end port to listen on. This is where clients will send their data, which is kind of a weird way. That's not the term I would use for front end, but whatever. You should allow inbound access to this port from anywhere. Work good. And then the admin GUI to listen on. This is going to be strange too, but we'll get there. Okay, so 8000.8889. Are we using Google Domains Dynamic DNS? We are not. GUI username or email address to authorize. So this part, don't skip. You need to set up an actual username or password to make this happen, okay? If you do it in default mode, it's admin password. But in this case, we're going to set it up. I'm not going to be special about it, just seclab. And then you can add as many users as you want and then enter to end. Okay, what has happened? Path to the logs directory is going to be opt Velociraptor logs. We do not want to restrict VQL functionality. Where should I write the server config file? Server config YAML, client config YAML. Lovely. Now we have two YAML files. Okay. What we would do next is create this thing, create a Debian package, and then install it, and that will actually do everything for us. But before we do that, I want us to review the server config file. And the client config file is important, but we will be taking that file and deploying it along with Velociraptor elsewhere, right? So basically we give other copies of the Velociraptor binary that config file and tell it then to phone home to the server. So it gives us everything we need in one shot, but let's take a look at this server config file real quickly, because there's something I want to show you. All of this is going to be mostly incidental to us, but I want to take a look at bind addresses here, because the GUI bind address is a little bit problematic. See this? The GUI bind address is bound to localhost. Velociraptor does not want you to open the GUI to the network. That is not what it wants you to do. Whoa, Vale, thank you so much. 5 gift subs. Incredibly generous. Thank you so much for that gift to Olgit, Dalton, Sparwall, Next Series G, and Collins, Wanyol, Yohai. I massacred that, but thank you so much. Okay, so we now have, so this bind address is a problem. You can change it if you want. You can change it, or you can do what Velociraptor recommends. Velociraptor, somebody count how many times I messed that up today. I think we're at 2. Velociraptor will, 3, 2, 1. Velociraptor recommends that you SSH port forward rather than opening that port. Orbital, thank you so much to the tier 1 sub back to Vale. That's really appreciated. So yeah, we can change this, but for now we're going to do it the way that Velociraptor recommends, which is to do the SSH port forward. Okay? So I just wanted you to be aware of that, because if you kind of missed that part and you were trying to set this up and you're like, wait a minute, why can't I access the GUI? That's why, because it doesn't bind to your public IP. Which I learned the hard way last night, which is kind of why I try to do prep for these whenever I can. I think it's useful to not go in totally blind. All right, now let's configure our Debian package. So thank you so much, Transparent Terminal. We're going to run Velociraptor. Give it the config that we just generated. Tell it that we want a Debian server package. And binary, I'm just going to call it Velociraptor. You don't have to give it that specific name. And besides, it doesn't care anyway, because it makes it for you with the right version number. So now we have a Debian package. This Debian package can be installed with dpackage the same way, and it could do RPM too if you wanted to. But the Debian package will not only install all of the binaries, configs, make the directories, it will also create the systemd service to run Velociraptor as a service that you don't have to worry about. Pretty nice, honestly, all things considered. So we'll run that. We'll do sudo dpackage -i Velociraptor 0675 server.deb. Oh, there's one other thing that it does that I forgot to mention. It's pretty important. It makes a Velociraptor user. See? All the Velociraptor stuff is owned by Velociraptor, and the service runs under the Velociraptor user as opposed to root, which is really good. That is what you want to have. So props to the Velociraptor team for taking that into account and doing it right. All right, now we can run sudo systemctl status Velociraptor, and up and running. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of... That's not right. Exit out of this and reconnect to this machine, but I'm going to add the -L option, and we'll do 8889. That's too many 8s. There we go. And forward it to localhost 8889. Wow, cannot type today. Localhost 8889. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, from my local machine, the machine I'm SSHing from, I want to forward port 8889 over to my SSH target, and that is how I'm going to access the administrative interface. Okay, with that done, I know you can do the port forward without the command prompt, but I wanted to do it. So with that done, I can now go to localhost 8889, HTTPS. I don't know why I specifically said HTTP. There we go. And we'll proceed. SecLab. And we're in. So for those of you who are hanging out last night in our lab in the Discord and wondering, I couldn't get past that part. The reason was there's something up with the 674 version of Velociraptor that just stops you from doing that. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but just be aware if you're doing this on Linux, use the latest 675. So I'm in. If I search for clients right now, yeah, this is an old client. So it's so funny. Yeah. Delete that client. Okay, so I don't have any clients right now. I'm going to add some. So we go back over to our deployment information to say deploying clients. Okay. There are multiple ways of doing this. There is technically a way to do this with an MSI, but the way that I have found that is easiest seems to be, you can even do it, there's technically a way to do it fileless, but you can have Velociraptor theoretically make you an MSI or repack an MSI with your own client config and then install that. I have tried that and not found it to be successful. The MSI becomes corrupted when I do that from the Linux server. Maybe it works from Windows, but it doesn't work for me on Linux. So instead, what I found, and this works honestly just as well for me, is this step right here. We can take the plain velociraptor.exe, give it the client config, and give it the subcommands service install. And that's it. It'll just install itself as a service, just like sysmon. So that's I think that's the easiest way to go. So all we need to do is get the client config. Easy enough. Let me fire up another tmux window here. And I will SCP we're going to get client.config.yaml. So I'm just copying that down from the server onto my jump box here. Why? Because my RDP session with my Windows host has the Velociraptor binary and the client config available. So I can move these over here, go to downloads, copy those over. I know this is a lot of setup. We'll play with it soon. Okay. Open a PowerShell window here. And Velociraptor config client config.yaml, and I believe it's service install. That's all. Service, install. Orbital has redeemed Play Me a Song. Okay. Time for a musical interlude. Let's just confirm that this thing is phoning home, and then we'll do that. Uh-oh. Well, that's not great. Yep, Velociraptor is running. They don't recommend doing it this way, but I don't really care because the MSI did not work for me. The other way you can do it is you can install the MSI without modifying it, and then you have to drop the client config in the program files directory. This seemed like it was easier. Although I'm concerned that it's not able to connect. Yeah, no connected clients. We'll work on that in a second. Let's get the song going. All right. Kind of in a quiet song mode. All right, this is a Damien Rice song. Older chests reveal themselves like a crack in the wall. Starting small, they grow in time. We all seem to need the help of someone else to mend that shelf. Too many books. Read me your favorite line. Papa went to other lands and he found someone who understands the ticking and the Western man's need to cry. He came back the other day. I know when some things in life may change and others stay the same. Like time, always time, it's on my mind. So pass me by, I'll be fine. Just give me time. Older gents sit on the fence, their cap in hand, looking round. They watch their city change, and children scream, or so it seems,
louder than before. Out of doors and into stores with bigger names. Mama tried to wash their faces, but these kids, they lost their graces. And Daddy lost at the races too many times. She broke down the other day. I know when some things in life may change and others stay the same. Like time, always time, it's on my mind. So pass me by, I'll be fine. Just give me time. Time, always time, it's on my mind.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Currently connected clients still 0. Well, that's what you want to see. Velociraptor is running. When will I play Myst? That's a good question. I did see that some of the other Myst games are now on Steam, so I can make that happen. Riven will take us 100 years, so we're not going to do Riven. But Myst 3 and 4, Myst 4 was good. I don't care what anybody says. And then Myst 5. Myst 5 is interesting. It's a little preachy. Yeah, we can make that happen. I'm concerned about this client config not working. Maybe we'll do like a spring break or something for the Institute. We'll play some Myst. Yeah. Okay. Can I hit that thing? 192.168.99.111. Oh yeah. And follow-up question. Did this install? We go to program files in Velociraptor. I guess it's in program files, not x86 program files. Oh, nope, there it is. Velociraptor.config.yaml. Cameron. 192.168.99.111. This looks good. Don't know what the problem is. Okay, here's my theory. Let's go back to the self-signed SSL documentation. So this is kind of what I mean. There are like some gotchas. As easy as it makes, they try to make it for you. Okay, let's do a quick just sanity check. I've learned to do this now. Yeah. Sudo TCP dump INS18. Yeah, that is not... We're not seeing anything on 8000, even though it should be. Right? No data at all. Let's restart the service. Now, can I get to this at all? Is another question. Like, can anybody? Answer yes. Right, that's fine. And am I picking that up on TCP dump? Ooh, no. That's interesting. Oh, no. There it is. Okay. So this was all from me. All of that was from me. So why is our client not connecting? Can you run it as a standalone service to test? I can. Yeah, the binary works. Yeah, we'll try it there too. I was concerned that the binary was corrupted, so I wanted to test that first. I believe client is one of the subcommands. I can check. Oh, hey, look. We're getting data from 128. Now. Interestingly, still no connected clients. Oh, there we go. Now we have a connected client. So that's interesting that the service install didn't seem to like that at all. All right. But this doesn't have like anything useful in it. Okay. So that's interesting. Let's good call, Lisso. Let's kill this. And instead, let's go get this thing the MSI, and we'll install it the way that they kind of want us to. Right? So we're going to remove this client. And we will, from our releases, we will download the Windows MSI 675? 674 is the latest. Windows, yeah. Cool. Okay. So we will install this and hope against hope that it is there. So the download, well, the download should be available to us right away because we have this mounted. Yep, there's the MSI. So we'll move this over to downloads and just run it. And for good measure, I'm going to remove the Velociraptor folder. Just to make sure it comes back the way we expect. Okay. Somebody's going to tell me how I got the MSI exec invocation wrong. Okay, Velociraptor's back. So basically, see, oh man, look at this client.config.yaml. So if we look at this, let's see how it differs. Right, should replace this file. Oh yeah, that's just garbage. Look at that. Okay. So we're gonna put this here. And then start service Velociraptor. And then okay, back down to 0. Fascinating. We had one host for a second, and then it went away. And now we're not seeing anything. So, for whatever reason, the service doesn't seem to want to play ball. That's interesting. I didn't expect to be running into this problem. This worked fine last night. Mm-hmm. Okay, whatever. We're gonna restart the machine just in case. Hey, Dark Matter, thanks for the follow. Not update and restart, just restart. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, over on the Ubuntu machine, can we get this going? Same situation. Let us... Can I tell you how much... I did this just to test out Ubuntu 22.04. Can I tell you how much I despise it? God, it's awful. Okay. Well, now let's go get the Linux binary again. And I'm curious... Okay, chmod plus x, Velociraptor, sudo, Velociraptor, config, client config, service, install. Will this work on Linux? No. So what are our options here? Oh, I can create, yeah, I can create a Debian client package that will do it. So basically I can do config Debian client Velociraptor. I could have done this on the server too, actually. What? Yeah, see? Now I have a deb. So dpackage.i Velociraptor client. And now the service is running. Sudo systemctl status Velociraptor. Yeah. How we doing? Are you kidding me? Still no traffic. And again, keep in mind, I obviously can hit this thing. In fact, we'll do curl K. Curl's not installed? Ubuntu, why? Does it maybe gather local info? Yeah, it might. We should be good by now, though, at this point. I mean, come on. Connection refused. What is happening? I'm almost wondering if there's something else that has this IP that is intercepting it. No? Like, do I have an IP address conflict here? No? Not there. There it is. That's why. Somehow, the Splunk server and the Velociraptor server got the same IP. And I was working on the... Oh, man. And I was working on... That's insane. Hey, Sar. So that's interesting. So what I was doing was I was doing that all on the Splunk machine. Great. Oh, man. Well, okay. These need to go then, but whatever. Okay, interesting. Real quick then, we're gonna have to go through. We're gonna get to go through all of that again. Or not, actually. What we're going to do is we're going to bring this up, start this, shut this one down, and just kind of rename this one. Because I don't want to have to change the certificates or anything. So, that's bananas. I can't believe that happened. Okay. So now that this is the only thing that's up that has that IP, and it still does have that IP, right? Yeah. I'm wondering. Hey, okay, there's one. And let's see if we get another one coming in too. You never heard of Velociraptor, Sar? Oh, you're in for a treat. Imagine if the blue teamers had a C2. That's what Velociraptor is. Okay, so what hosts do I have? Oh no, I do have two. All right, we're back up. So finally, that was my mistake. I apologize for that. I had two machines that had the same IP address, which is why our clients were struggling to connect. So everything that we did in the first case with the client install worked as well. So that would have been fine. So now we have these two machines. And let me just reconnect to our Windows machine so that we can fire up that XLL again and get ourselves a new session and have some fun. I'm going to re-enable Defender, or re-disable Defender, I should say, because, oh wait, is it actually off? No, real-time protection always turns itself back on. Okay. And let me just launch this XLL here, because why not? Boop. So this is what happens when you launch an XLL, by the way. So you do have, there's some like security warning, but I would imagine most people would bypass this. Be like, I need this, enable it. At which point, no errors or anything, there's no content. And then we just get a session. And I have one on the Ubuntu machine as well. So let's use 866. Oh, actually, you know what I'm going to do? Ransom.txt. Let's create a ransom note. Do I sound like a ransomware actor? All right, let's use the Ubuntu session first. Great. Command only support on Windows. That's fine. Let's execute a shell then. Yeah, do it. Look at this nice shell I have. Just adding a user here. Ah. Good lord. Seriously? See, this Windows session is like unstable, interestingly. I'm gonna fire it up from Rusty Needle, but for now. Jeez, okay. Now, G password, a sudo. Or is it sudoers? Yeah, no, it's sudo. And okay. All right, so I just did some stuff here, and now 192.168.99.129. Ooh. Is that wrong? Yeah, it is. Different subnet. 10.1. 10.1.99.129. Ah. Okay. All right. I've now taken some actions on this Linux machine. I've elevated to root. I've got myself an SSH shell there. Cool. Now, let's exit out of this shell, and we'll go compromise our Windows machine. Get out of here, Excel. Nobody cares. So the XLL one seems a little bit unstable. So I'm going to use my trusty Rusty Needle to do the injection. And again, our purpose here is to use Velociraptor, not to bypass EDR. All right, we have a new session here. Okay. Looks good. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's upload the ransom.txt. That's wild. I'm gonna close Excel because that's getting out of hand. This is taking longer than I expected. This is still up and running. We should be good here. Yep, it's there. Oh yeah, it's there. I don't know why our sliver sessions are being so weird today. but that's fine. Okay, so we have. Let's go crazy. Let's elevate to system. See how this does. Oh, actually. No, this was run with administrator privileges. Yeah, it was. That shouldn't be too terrible. Okay, so as I said, we do have Sysmon installed on this Windows machine. So let's now try to use Velociraptor. So let's imagine we've seen this ransom note and we are worried about what happened to our system. We want to perform some investigations on this thing. How do we do it? Let's go over to Velociraptor and actually, use it. All right. So when we have Velociraptor set up this way, we can either perform a hunt, which is a client-wide set of artifact collections, or we can specify specific targets. If we do a hunt, which is over here, the hunt manager, right? Let's stop this hunt for info. I'm gonna remove both of these just because they're not useful for us right now. And I want to demonstrate hunts now with our clients properly set up. So now that I have this, let's make a new hunt. Let's just call this basic info. We're going to run it everywhere. You can also tag clients, by the way. Okay. We're going to run this. We're going to select our artifacts. These are the ones that are built in, but we can add more from the artifact exchange. Let's just do info, general client info. Awesome. There are no parameters for this, but we would select our parameters here if there were any. And everything looks good. We will launch this hunt. The hunt begins in paused mode. See that down here? To run it, we hit run hunt. And then we're off to the races. We've got 1, 2 finished clients. See how that updated in real time? So here are our results. We can see the clients that were affected. We've got basic info from here and from our Ubuntu machine. If we click on the results, sorry. That's the flow. Yeah, here we go. The notebook will contain the results, is the way that goes. And notebooks like Jupyter notebooks, we'll talk more about how you can work with notebooks in this way. But we have basic information. You can see that there's a lot here, right? Build URL, architecture, platform version, all of these columns pull in. And so this is a lot of information. And keep in mind that this was the basic information, but there's more here. There's Windows information that we pulled from the desktop machine, right? Network info, very useful. And then users we pulled in from the Windows machine as well. If I wanted to, I can actually add additional data. We'll get into notebooks a little bit more, but you can see there's a plus button here. I can add cells to this, either Markdown, where if I want to write more information about the thing, or VQL, which is where I can run custom queries. All right, so this hunt is done. We're going to stop this hunt. Something about hunts that's kind of interesting. Hunts are never finished. They're only abandoned, basically. Meaning that if you leave a hunt running, as new clients come online, the hunt will be assigned, those tasks will be assigned to them and will run and collect on that hunt and show up in your notebook. So you can set this up and let it go, and then it'll keep as new clients come online if you want to. That'll happen there as well. So you have to manually stop the hunt. You can also set them, you can schedule them and set them to timeout or whatever. Right, and then we have collected artifacts, which is an easier way of seeing everything that we've collected so far. Right? These are our results. We want to see the information here. Let's run another one. Before we run another hunt, there's another capability of Velociraptor that we haven't talked about yet, which I think is kind of cool, which is the VFS, the Velociraptor file system. So for any of my hosts, let me go to our desktop here. See this VFS button? It turns out that I'm able, let's do a recursive sync. I am able to look at the entire file system right from within Velociraptor. And so let's say that we were told about that ransom note, and I wanted to collect it for my evidence, right? And maybe there are some other samples that I want to get as well. Not to worry, because I can do that right from here. Once this all is synced, I am able to navigate down into that directory. Now, notice that I can do this. I have a couple of different ways. I've got auto, which is the file system, NTFS, which is, auto is the actual files. But NTFS is the file system, and there's a crucial difference. NTFS will do stuff like show me alternate data streams and orphaned files, things like that. So if I want to see all deleted items, I can use the NTFS collector and sync that as well, which is where we get into DFIR. DFIR actually becomes really easy with Velociraptor in a lot of ways. In some cases, either easier than Velociraptor, oh my god, easier than Autopsy, because I don't have this massive ingestion process the same way. Now, it's definitely easier on a live system, but in the latest version of Velociraptor, they have added the capability to do dead disk forensics. This is pretty new, right? This was as of March 2022. Where there is a way, if you have a disk you can mount, that you can mount that disk and point Velociraptor to it to use that instead. And therefore, you can use Velociraptor for disk forensics. You can already use it for memory forensics if you wanted to, right? Because you could fire it up and run stuff. It's not a memory snapshot tool, unfortunately. That's not part of what you can do with it, I don't believe. But for disk forensics, I love having an alternative to something like Autopsy, because Autopsy is so massive. Yeah, that's doing its thing. Let's try to run some other collectors here. So let's run... let's tag our clients, because we can do that. Let's add a label. Which is, you can do that with OS selection, but now we have a label for it, right? So now let's run a hunt. And call it process creations. And we're going to run match by label Windows. Okay. This time we're going to start the hunt immediately. Select the artifacts. Look for process. Seriously? Windows dot event log. Let's see. Windows dot event. What you got for me? So let's run PowerShell script block. Let's run. There's less here than I wanted. Because we don't have sysmon either. Right? This EVTX. Parse and returns events from Windows EVTX logs. Okay, so we'll select that one too. Let's configure our parameters. So for PowerShell script block logging, we'll pull everything because there's just like 24 hours of data anyway on this. And then for Windows event log EVTX, okay, we're going to pull everything. And yeah, that looks good. So then we're going to launch this. And one would hope that it got scheduled because there we go. It started and is scheduled. So it takes a second, but it happens. So now it's running on our desktop here. Let's take a look at that file system. This is killing me. We do NTFS, can we do any better? Yes. NTFS does better. So if we do C, now we'll pull down here. This will be a whole thing. Process creations, how are we doing? Ah, it's finished. Excellent. So we can review this a couple ways. We can either go to the notebook or we can go to the collected artifacts here and we can see all of the things that we've picked up, right? Notice that VFS is doing a lot for us here, but this is the one that we wanted. So let's look at our results. Obviously, there's quite a lot of data here. So what do we do with all this now that we have it? Well, we can certainly parse through this. We can extract it if we want. We can download the JSON. We can download a CSV. And this is where you could maybe use Jupyter or something else like that. But there's actually even another option. We can filter columns. Right, so we can say event ID, let's look for event ID 3. And then we can further filter that. Let's say, Hmm. Let's filter for sysmon, because we know that we have some other stuff in here. So, column, channel, sysmon. Oh dear. Do we not have sysmon data? Thanks for hanging out. This is the PowerShell stuff. So what I'm kind of learning, and this is again me exploring this as much as anything, is that in order to get the best results out of this, is you really have to either dive into the VQL or export the data and use it in another tool that you're more comfortable with. So for example, see how we have this artifact event log EVTX? Well, we can, I don't want to limit 50, but we can do something like where or let's make this a little bit. Ooh. Now I'm kind of going out of my familiarity. But before I do that, let's talk about what we're actually doing here. So VQL is the built-in query language inside of Velociraptor that allows us to parse down into this data and explore it more interestingly. And so the notebook allows us to do this in some interesting ways. Yeah, so it'll even tell you about how to do some of these. But so basically, let's confirm that I have network ID 3s here, because I know I should have them, but just in case. Okay. I know I could have done this with PowerShell, but I didn't feel like it. Did I have to run this as admin? I guess maybe I am. Oh, nope. There we go. Microsoft Windows. Smart. Operational. We definitely have it there. Filter current log. Event ID 3 for network connections. Oh yeah. So what's the trick? What just happened here? Why can't we see them? I believe that our EVTX collection just didn't pick them up. Let's see where channel Let's try that. Microsoft Client Licensing Platform. Okay. Let's re-edit that. The look just for Microsoft, Windows, Sysmon, operational. Okay, so it did pull them back. And we have event record IDs. So if we just want to see the Sysmon stuff, this is how we can do that. Unfortunately, just like so many other things that work with Sysmon logs, the custom fields are not extracted in this particular artifact. So how do we fix that problem? One way we can fix that problem is with the artifact exchange to see if there's something that will help us parse Sysmon logs. There you go. So let's take a look at the Windows Triage Sysmon that we just had before. And now that we've seen a little bit of VQL, what does it actually do for us? Okay, so it is actually parsing the fields more appropriately for us. So what I want to do, I don't know why this isn't standard, but what I want to do is I want to take this and I want to add it to my artifacts. So I'm going to go over to my artifact collection here, and I will add this artifact. And just paste all of that in. Thank you very much. And now, if we go back to our hosts here, go to collected, let's add one more and look for Sysmon. Okay. We'll configure the parameters such that our target time, let's say, as of, today. Wait, no, that's not today. That's today. And we're in UTC, so I want to change that to local just for my own sanity. Let's say 9 a.m. Okay. And we're going to do all event IDs. This looks good. Let's fire this off. Sysmon's running. And didn't pick up anything. So there's something deeply flawed with this artifact, which maybe we have to go fix. Meanwhile, VFS has updated. And now we actually have data here. See how it's actually parsed our file system now? And now if I go down to desktop, let's say I wanted this ransom note. I can, in fact, see it in both text view and hex view. I need to collect from the client. Then I can do that. So actually a pretty cool artifact collection tool, certainly. And I think that's really the trick, is that Velociraptor is used to quickly pull data, and then analysis may be best undertaken in other tools. That's kind of where I'm landing with this, that Velociraptor is for grabbing, not for analyzing. And you can filter down a little bit with VQL, but it's really about collecting artifacts, right? Rather than analysis. That's for other tools. Now, the one last thing I wanted to play with today was to attempt the dead disk forensics mechanism here. So to do that, I actually have a Cyber Defenders challenge. We're not going to complete the Cyber Defenders challenge today, but I just want to see if this works. So I have a Cyber Defenders challenge called Pwn DC, and I have downloaded the disk for this. So what I want to do is I want to configure Velociraptor to work with this disk. If I can. What? Okay, currently extracting the disk. So how does this work? It works by remapping the file system accessors. So essentially, once we mount the image one way or another, and I can do this with FTK Imager, or I can do it with Arsenal if I need to. And what happens is we run Velociraptor with the dead disk. We're going to add the Windows disk and use this remapping here. Hey, Joe, thanks for the follow. Right, and then once we do that, we can do the GUI, so we can run the standalone. Is this thing extracted? It is. All right, what sort of a thing is this? Okay, there's an EO1. Awesome. There's also a memory dump, but I want to do the dead disk forensics here. So this disk here is what I need to mount. So I think FTK can mount EO1s. I'm like reasonably certain that's true. Good old FTK file. Image mounting, image file. Let's go to E, learning, Cyber Defenders, Pwn DC. That guy. Awesome. Do it. Yep. And we're mounted. God. Thank you so much to FTK Imager for existing. And Arsenal too. Those two things are indispensable in DFIR. Arsenal's cool because what I can do with Arsenal is I can take just a partition and just do a DD of a partition, copy that to an image file, and then use Arsenal to mount just that. FTK, you pretty much need a whole file system, not a partition. So Arsenal has some cool tricks. Okay, so we're going to leave this open. We'll leave FTK open. So now, if you see, I have this local disk here, and look, it's a Windows system. So what I'm going to do, I hope, is with my local PowerShell, so I'm going to run Nope, I keep doing this. It's got to be in my admin PowerShell window, which is over here. This thing's still running. Okay, stop. So what we want to do is we want to run dead disk, and we want to point it to add Windows disk. Nope, that's the wrong thing. Add Windows disk. And we're going to save it to just remapping.yaml in this folder, I think. I beg your pardon? Oh, add underscore Windows. Why would you do that? You can't, you're not supposed to use underscores and option flags. Okay, so what did we see? No embedded config, setting empty. This is all verbose output, but I want to see journal service, starting repository, enumerating partitions using Windows Forensics partition table, row scanned. Okay. Windows directory at the top level, and it didn't find it at all. Sorry, I'm gonna move this off the screen. Ooh. Yeah, that's no good. Well, oh, you know what? I suppose the issue is that I mounted it as a Windows disk, and it doesn't actually want that. It wants a disk image. Ironically. Let's see what happens if we point it to the EO1. So that did something different. No NTFS magic while processing. Yeah. That's interesting. And a little disappointing. Now I have Velociraptor here, so I suppose I could configure it to simply do a remapper where we only look at the F drive. But then we'd also need to do the registry hives, right? Yeah. I don't know, friends. This seems like... It's like, it can do it, but should I use it, is my question here, to do dead disk forensics. Because as somebody who does have to do forensic work on occasion, I'm thinking like, okay, so in order to make this work, I have to do all of this to remap to use Velociraptor to do its collection. Or I can fire up Autopsy and get the data that I need directly. Because right now, I can point Autopsy at the mounted G drive, F drive, whatever I have. I can just do that right now. And it will ingest this as data, and it'll process a timeline. It'll process the registries. It'll process user data. It'll process all of that stuff for me without me having to go through that. So I'm not, for me, as much as I like Velociraptor for some other use cases, I'm not sold on it as a forensics tool. At least for disk forensics. It seems like I'm having to do a lot of back and forth here to configure the tool, some of which doesn't work on Windows, which is problematic for other reasons. I want to, if I'm doing Windows forensics, I want to be on a Windows machine, because there's going to be a bunch of stuff that I'm going to want to have access to a native like NTFS file system and alternate data streams and all that stuff. I want to be able to see that. So it's useful to me to be on a Windows machine when I'm doing Windows forensics. So if that only works on Linux, or if for whatever reason you need to have just like the dead disk mounted as not an actual file system, that's kind of funky to me. It's like against process. Because what I would normally do, right, is let's say I had an unencrypted, BitLocker's another thing. Let's say I had an unencrypted Windows disk. I would make an image of it, right? Cryptographically verify the hash. I'd have the image. I would have it in a copied separate state, and I would mount that image, and it would represent itself as a drive, right? And then I would process it with Autopsy or whatever else. And then I would have all of that data available to me. Well, it turns out, if I'm understanding this correctly, that I can't really do that with Velociraptor. I need to have, it's almost like working with volatility, where you need to have the dead file, and then it analyzes it, and then you kind of like remount it there with specific offsets and things like that. And it's like, that's really, really hacky. I don't know. There are a lot of ways that can go wrong. Yeah, I'm not sure about it for that particular use case. But that's not an indictment of the entire tool. That's just saying there are better things that can do that. So just to give you an idea of what I'm saying, I've now mounted this drive, right? So let's kind of, and I have Autopsy on here. I know this is a Velociraptor stream, but just to show you the difference, right? So we were trying to mount this with Velociraptor, but if you haven't seen Autopsy, how would this tool, which is pretty standard in DFIR, how would it handle a disk image? Let's do a new case here. Call it Pwn DC, and let's put the base directory up into here. Yeah. Okay, good. And by the way, I don't even have to, Autopsy can just pull the EO1. I don't even need FTK. right? With autopsy, I can... Come on. Come on, you can do it. Luckily, this is... So if I do disk image, look. Right from here, I can pull in. Let's do the Pwn DC. It's smart, not so smart about VHDs. I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, I should have run Plazo, but whatever. And then it'll just pull this stuff in, right? Now this takes a while. Oh, that's true. If you have like a virtual machine snapshot, there are a couple of extra steps. That's absolutely the case. But it turns out that would be the case for... Yeah, you need to mount the VHD, which is like, it's fine. It turns out you have to do that with Velociraptor too. Okay, we'll kind of let that cook. That's so funny. Nothing could be perfect. That is absolutely the case. However, part of our purpose here today is to begin understanding Velociraptor, what it can do, and also be realistic about what it can't do, as long as it's free, we'll take those. I'm going to push on that a little bit, Christy. I'm okay with being critical of tools even if they're free, because if they're being offered as the solution, then they damn well better work, right? It's not free if it doesn't... My time isn't free. So if it takes a lot of my time and then doesn't work, then we have a problem with a tool, right? So I'm okay with there being some interesting complications, but if it's too much and there are other alternatives, I have to say, I'm past the point where free is the most important thing in my life, because it turns out that often if I'm not paying money for something, I'm paying time for something. And yes, it is a position of privilege, but I'm in a position where I much rather would spend some money than spend a lot of time. And so, like, if I had to pay a license fee to use Autopsy, I would do it. I know that there's Encase and stuff like that. Autopsy's great, but it's good enough that I would pay for it. I would pay, by the way, I have paid for other software too. When there are open source alternatives that work as well, I support those. But I'm just saying, free isn't a license to be frustrating. So yeah, look at it, already pulled all this data in. Now analysis is still taking place, but we can still like start seeing this information. Look at this. Already we're getting information from this. Analysis always takes a while. Okay. But in terms of Velociraptor, let's see. So we talked about the exchange. The next part would be writing your own artifacts, right? And that is kind of where I am starting to dig into, where you write your own VQL to process this. The question is, where is the value in that, right? What kind of things do you have in Velociraptor that you can't get with other existing artifacts that you would need that for? Well, in this case, it turns out that the Sysmon artifact appears to have some issues. All right, so if we go to our artifacts here, let's go look at nope, our Sysmon Windows Sysmon triage. Let's edit this thing. Let's see what's going on. Why does this not work? Where OS equals Windows, okay. Date after time If condition, target time, and timestamp. I'll timestamp now. So if we don't set it, we set date after time minus time box, which is 600 by default, I think. Run query and output rows. Select from artifact windows, event logs, EVTX Hunter. Yeah, so it is actually using the EVTX Hunter artifact. And it's using system root, system32, WinAVT logs, and then sysmon, any sysmon.evtx. So those wildcards. The channel regex equals sysmon. And then it's using this, the ID regex. So all of that should pull. And then what happens next? The VQL suggestion. Process the event timeline. Oh, this is a suggestion. It's not even doing it. Change the file time. So we have the data, but it's not actually showing it to us. Okay. That's fascinating. Yeah, it didn't pull anything at all. Which is problematic. We haven't even gotten to the Linux machine. What can we do from a Linux perspective? So Linux has anomalous files. Let's give that a shot. And we'll do cape files as well. Detection anomalous files. Okay. Cape files collect from directory. This is not right. We're going to take that off. We're going to just do anonymous files for right now. Fire that off. If you have 10 agents, I can do a multi-search for a process or a hash. Yeah, I think you can. So if you wanted to do that, let's look for what kind of artifacts we have. Yeah, generative forensic, hash lookup, hash hunter. You betcha. You sure can. And in fact, you can get a PS tree if you want, and you can use Yara rules with it. So that actually works fine. So what did we get back here? Linux hunt. Nothing's even scheduled for this yet, which is upsetting. Oh, wait, no. Run it. There we go. I didn't hit run. There we go. Done. Okay, so what did we get back? Linux detection anomalous files. What did we see? No data available. Awesome. Disappointing. Now, it's possible that I'm doing something wrong here, but this ran against two things, and it didn't do anything. Let's say I was looking for that ransom note. How would I do that? This is something you can do, by the way, if you want to see global spread. It's a little scary, but you can do it. Select artifacts. Let's look for hashes. While targeting input that generates a hash for each file to compare several types of hash lists provided. Yeah, local hashes are query. No, no, no. Artifact enables searching for hashes. Yes, good. This is what we want. Configure parameters. Okay, hash glob. See users. And the hash DB. Oh, interesting. So we actually have to have the hash DB. So this isn't really what I'm saying. Okay, let's see what this one does. Okay, so the target glob here, the accessor is here. MD5 list hash 4. Okay, here we go. This is how we do it. So we put in a SHA-256 list. So let me go get the ransom note from... Just get it from here. So this is Windows. So I'm going to run just on my Windows machines. We did the params. And let's go. All right, so it's scheduled at least. See if it does anything. In terms of overall feel, I have to say I'm finding Velociraptor a little clunky. Like, some of that is just UI, like responsiveness, where things are. I'm finding this very hard to navigate. In all honesty, like, I want to like this tool and I want to use it, but I feel like I'm working against it rather than with it a lot of the time. Okay, this thing is finished. All right, so it found it. That's good news. It did find it. Oh, incidentally. Oh yeah, there would be no alternate data stream for that one, but... Let me go to users. Nope. Nope. Users, SecLab. Downloads. There should be This is interesting. So I should see Mark of the Web somewhere. Maybe not, because it was downloaded locally. Let me download something from the internet and see if we see Mark of the Web here. Because we absolutely should. Perfect. I don't really care that it's a WebP. I just need it to be a file. Okay. Then... what you got for me? There it is. So with the NTFS, you can see that I get the zone identifier. There's your Mark of the Web. Which is something you want to see. Because remember, we can do some wild stuff. So we can do something like... we can hide stuff in alternate data streams, right? If we do, let's go back to our downloads folder here. Wow. This thing is struggling. I love this. So we're going to echo to secret.txt, right? And then we're going to set content. I think that's right. Set content value secret to, and then stream secret txt. Yes. Okay. So now, if we go back to Velociraptor, let's check this again. Oh, NTFS. Yes. There we go. So NTFS will, this view will expose alternate data streams really nicely. So I can collect this from the client. And I can get the ADS. Yes. So good. I'm mostly happy that I remembered how to set ADS content without looking it up. But yeah. I think here's where I'm landing. Velociraptor is a fantastic tool for gathering forensic and incident response data. Personally, I wouldn't analyze anything in this unless you made me. Because as I'm looking through this, I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I became an expert in VQL, I would be much more comfortable doing stuff here. But even then, just like the visual interfaces, I'm really struggling with it. Whereas I could export the CSV of all this data and load it into a Jupyter notebook and go to work and process this very, very quickly. So I think that's kind of where I'm landing on it. The Velociraptor is a great collection tool, but then you need to be using something else to do the processing and analysis. But nonetheless, getting it up and running in an environment that doesn't have anything else available is pretty quick and mostly painless, as long as you're not having an IP conflict. Yeah, so I think that's where I'm going to land with it. I will try to use Velociraptor for some IRs and see how it goes in the wild. But at least now we know how to set it up. We know how to look through it and explore it. And I encourage you to do the same. Play with some artifacts in the artifact exchange. Practice with VQL if you're interested in doing so. But it's definitely worth your time to check out. But I think with that, we're going to call it a day. We have done what I wanted to do with reviewing Velociraptor. Let's see. There is nobody that I know who is streaming right now. So I think I'm going to let just everybody go on their merry way and enjoy their Saturday. J-Beers, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm not comfortable rating J-Beers. Everyone can go check J-Beers out if they like, but I can't. I'm not going to personally endorse that one. Sorry. So yeah, going to let everyone enjoy their Saturday, and I will be back on Wednesday. So until next time, please be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. I will see you next time.